The castle loomed before us as we emerged from the forest canopy. Behind us, scores of nocturnal eyes watched our every move as our horses proceeded slowly up the road to the keep. The tower appeared as a gigantic shadow, silhouetted by the full moon behind it. Gregor rode just ahead of me as we ascended the narrow cobblestone path. "Not a single torch lit," he shouted, barely turning his head toward me. "It is forsaken." "Forsaken?" I responded, "more likely sacked and plundered of all its worth." Whether he did not hear my disparaging remarks, or simply chose to ignore them, I cannot say. But Gregor steadily progressed on his course, and, as usual, I followed. The keep appeared desolate, yet there was a pull that permeated the place, an overall sense that made me think of the tower as some huge mausoleum or forbidden crypt. "No doubt haunted and cursed by the souls of the fallen," I said, beneath my breath. "Haunted, cursed, and bedeviled as well. At least that is what the townsfolk would have us think," Gregor replied, then let loose a bold laugh, all the while staying his course. To one side of the road ahead stood the remains of an ancient structure. Marble columns supported 3 lancetted archways, and heavy stone blocks, crumbled and weathered by the ages, lay to either side of the path. The arched wall appeared to be all that remained of some larger edifice, long ago fallen. Perhaps a sentinel gate which would have stretched across the road, forbidding passage to the keep. It was here, among the standing columns, that something strange first caught my eye. From a distance, it appeared only as a wisp of white mist, with neither form nor essence between the central pillars of the gate. Gregor noticed nothing. His gaze was firmly fixed upon the tower, but I had the keen eye of a scout, and was thus more wary of our surroundings. As we drew nearer, I could see that the wisp of white was no mist, but instead a fine silken gown which shrouded the form of a young woman. "Gregor," I whispered, then again, louder, "Gregor, look." The girl stood within the open central archway, looking toward the castle and the moon beyond. Atop the gate, a row of ravens sat perched and watched our approach. We brought our horses to a halt just before the standing columns. "Are you lost, my lady?" I asked. The girl gave no response. She made not even the slightest gesture to acknowledge our presence. The outer archways were closed off by elaborate gates of wrought iron. The twin gates were crowned by sculpted heads of court jesters, entwined within the intricate ironwork. Their faces bore woeful grimaces that invoked a sense of dread and despair. Their lifeless eyes cast a somber gaze and stared blankly into the darkness. Gregor now addressed the girl. "Surely you must be far from home, perhaps in need of a chaperone or escort. If need be, my fellow traveler and I would gladly avail ourselves to you." His beguiling words did not surprise me, for though he was ordinarily brutish and crass, Gregor could charm a serpent if it suited his needs. Just then, the distant howl of a wolf broke the night's calm and fell to join the rising moan of the wind, creating a long and mournful wail. Curiously now, the girl spoke, not in answer to our questions, but instead reciting a cryptic rhyme. "Wolves and ravens share the night, an omen for the morrow. The wind carries the banshee's cry to foretell coming sorrow." She turned her head and looked toward us, Her face was young and fair, her complexion pale, almost white. Her gown, like fine gossamer, flowed and floated upon the breeze. "What brings one so lovely to this forlorn place in the midst of the night?" Gregor inquired, still keeping a charming lilt to his voice. Turning once again toward the castle, she leaned her head far back to bask in the glow of the moonlight, then answered simply, "The moon." The girl seemed distant, as if lost in deep reminiscence. Gregor watched her intently, sizing his prey, then turned a sly eye toward me and said in a low voice, "If this be the only treasure we take from this place, then she shall make this trek worth our while." "That would not be wise," she said, overhearing his remark, "for it would only serve to anger Lord Braun." "Lord Braun?" asked Gregor. "Is he your sovereign?" "He is my love. I come to him here when the moon is full." "Why is he not here then?" "Alas, tonight the ravens announce your arrival. He awaits within the tower." "He awaits? Let us not disappoint our host then," Gregor said, then started his horse toward the castle. "Stop!" she cried out, her voice echoing through the night. Gregor's horse halted at her command. "Do not test me, child." Gregor's patience had quickly worn thin. "Though you be a sweet morsel, many such as you have met their fate at the end of my blade." "Yes, I know your kind, all too well," replied the girl. "Do you now? Tell me then, of my kind," he goaded. The girl looked at Gregor, silent and contemplating for a short while, then spoke. "You are strong and proud, relentless and unyielding. You let nothing stand in your way. A warrior to be reckoned with, your sharp blade the emissary of your wrath. Your thirst for blood is matched only by the rage that courses through your veins. Unburdened by guilt for the sufferings you inflict, you do not know the weakness of mercy. You give no quarter and expect none in return. Many have fallen in your wake." She paused, then said in a lowered voice, "Lord Braun has need of men such as you." Gregor smiled, his vanity quenched. She then turned her gaze to me, silently surveying me for a moment, then said, "A follower only, no great warrior. Nay, merely a soldier. You have not the stomach for the tragedies of war. Your sword lays heavy in your hands, weighed down by your own conscience, hindered by grief and remorse for the few lives you have claimed in battle. You can recount each one, their faces forever haunting your memories. You try to hide your true nature beneath a cloak of false bravery." She stopped, looking me slowly up and down, then said at last, "There is only death for you beyond this gate." The meaning of her words sunk slowly into my heart. "We shall see what awaits us within," Gregor said, then turned to me. "Come, let us go forth." But I had no desire to follow, for I took heed of her warning. The abysmal pall that marked this territory had crept over me, and I knew, beyond a shade of doubt, that I now stood at the threshold of death's domain. "No," I replied. Gregor glared at me, his brow furrowed with disfavor. Then he smirked and said, "So be it. Leave your steed here," the girl said to him. You will have no need of it beyond this gate." Gregor dismounted and handed me his reins. "Watch my horse," he sneered, "and perhaps I shall give you a copper piece when I return, boy." He withdrew his sword from its sheath, then proceeded toward the tower on foot. The ravens upon the gate took wing and followed him to the castle. I squinted and watched him stop before the entrance to the keep. He put his shoulder to the heavy door, and with a great creak, it swung open. A moment later, he lit a torch which illuminated the castle's grim facade. For the first time, I beheld the dark tower in all its sinister glory. The place made my blood run cold. The ravens, which had disappeared into the darkness of the tower's shadow, had come to take roost upon several gargoyles above the arched doorway. They began to croak and caw down at Gregor. He ignored them and entered the tower. The glow from his torch emanated through the open castle door. Still calmly gazing at me, the girl stood in serene repose, her arms outstretched between the pillars of the central arch. The silken material of her gown was aglow with soft, radiant light. Her ebony black hair flowed in sharp contrast against the moon, which now hung low in the night sky behind her. "Think back upon this night," she said, her voice now strangely hollow. "Remember the decision you have made here." Just then, I heard another creaking sound, followed by a heavy slam. I looked back toward the keep. The castle door now stood closed, and all was once again dark within. The ravens shrieked and croaked their ghastly call, until it reached a crescendo in what sounded like a tortured scream. The unrelenting chorus of the ravens' cries caused Gregor's horse to stir. It tore from my grip and bolted down the forest path. As I turned to give chase, I looked one final time toward the watcher at the gate. She was gone. Only a swirling mist remained where she had stood. With desperate haste, I spurred my horse to pursue Gregor's runaway steed. The thorny bramble caught my clothes and tore at my flesh as I fled through the dark wood. But I dared not slow my steed until that accursed place was far behind me. I never laid eyes upon Gregor again. Long ago, I am told, a village maiden ventured to the tower one moonlit night. She went to meet her love, but met her fate instead. It is said that she still visits when the moon shines full, this ghostly watcher at the gate, granting passage only to those who may serve some purpose within the tower, for the lord of the keep still has his needs.